Hello everybody, here we are today with fruitful trees, but today we're not just going to be talking about fruitful trees, we're going to be talking about just growing perennial vegetables and just what we can grow under our trees or in pots and other things as well. We're here with Matthew Reese from What's Ripening Florida and also from his company Peace River Organics. And tell everybody a little about of what you're doing between your trees.
So between the trees, we're doing a little bit of everything. We like to grow things short-term and long-term. So you plant your fruit trees, it takes a little while to get the fruit. Why not use the space around them and make something happen?
Exactly. So he's going to show us a quick tour of some of the perennial vegetables that he has growing here, which I highly recommend, especially people that live in the South grow so you can get food all year. And we're looking forward to that, so let's start this tour. All right, so here we are. We're going to talk about some perennial vegetables and show us what you were just talking about.
So yeah, so this is one. This is the Latin is Solanum torvum. It's a bitter eggplant relative. It's got all kinds of different names. They call it gully beans in parts of the West Indies. There's a whole bunch of other names, but it's a real bitter little green eggplant that grows like you just can't kill it here. And when you try to look up cultivation advice about it, there isn't any because it just grows in the gully. That's why they call it gully bean. It just grows everywhere. The interesting thing about this, for what it is that it's really resistant to nematode attack, and you can actually graft other eggplants onto this. So if you want to grow a traditional, Japanese eggplant or something else, you can graft them onto this as a rootstock, and you can have a perennial eggplant.
Oh wow!
On that. This particular one is a thorny variety, but I also have a thornless variety as well of these, and they grow amazingly well down here.
How big are the fruit on it?
This is about it. This is when you actually would harvest it, just like that.
And would you eat it just like eggplant?
Usually it's boiled down into a curry, so either mashed or just whole. In Thailand they use them whole in like a green curry. In India I think they use them like that, and they also use them dried in curries as well. But usually it's mixed with something pungent, onions and garlic and all that kind of stuff, because it's got a strong flavor. Right here next to it, this is galangal. This is if you ever had tom kha soup from a Thai restaurant, this is the kha. So tom kha, that's what this is. It's a ginger relative. It's a really peppery ginger root at the bottom. What's different about this versus regular ginger? A couple things. One is that it's evergreen. It's as a landscape ornamental, it looks like this all the time. Versus ginger that dies back and doesn't look like anything part of the year. This actually looks nice in the landscape. Another thing that's unique about it is that when you harvest it, it doesn't create a cuticle on the skin, so you can't store it. So you have to harvest it fresh and use it. But the nice thing is that it's always growing, so you just pull one off the side, cut it up, put it in your curry, and you go. Another perennial vegetable, let's see, sugarcane probably doesn't count. Let's go back around this way.
And you put the vegetable, what?
This right here is lemongrass.
Lemongrass, okay.
Another popular aromatic, used it in teas. You can use it in curries as well.
And you put these between your fruit trees for the meantime, right?
Yeah, I use them just to occupy space. If I don't plant something there, something else will grow. It'll be a weed, which is just a plant that we don't have a use for, basically. You can see there's weeds in here. Let's see. One that I grow everywhere all the time is sweet potato. Right now, we're coming towards the end of the summer, so the sweet potatoes are still here. In this part of the state, they really don't die all the way back, but they just kind of stop growing. If you go north from here, they'll die off and they'll turn brown.
So besides the sweet potatoes, the greens are edible, correct?
Yeah, the greens are edible. Usually you'll be eating the tips, the tender tips. That's usually the part that gets like a little quick saute. Or
do you have to cook them, or can you eat them raw?
I don't think they're toxic. I don't know if you'd want to eat 2 gallons of it or something, but I think you can eat them raw from what I understand.
And it's important whenever anyone's watching, if you are going to investigate in perennials or so-called wild foods, that you know what you're eating for sure before you go ahead and investigate with them. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of things that look kind of like a lot of things. So. This is one I think you were just talking about. This is the longevity spinach. or Chinese spinach, or another name for it is cholesterol spinach. And this is something that you can eat raw. Most of the time it's cooked. It grows as kind of a sprawling ground cover, so it'll kind of fill space. You can see here I've actually cut it back already, but it's regrowing. And there's another one called Okinawa spinach that looks very much like this, except the bottom of the leaves are purple. So I grow both of them here. They're both pretty popular. Best use for this kind of stuff to me is put it at the very end. If you're doing if you're cooking something, put it in at the end just to wilt it down, basically.
And how would you grow these? Do they grow from seed or cuttings, or how do these grow?
These grow from cuttings. So I can pull it out. As you can see, basically where the stem touches the ground, it'll set down roots. So to start a new plant, you would just take a piece like this. It doesn't even have to have roots on it. It could be one of these fleshier ones, and just have a few nodes under the ground. It'll take a little while, but it'll set the roots down. Ideally, you'd get one like that that's already got the roots on it.
Okay, so that's longevity spinach or Okinawa spinach. And does it need a lot of sun? Because I see you have them here under the trees.
It doesn't seem to mind a little bit of shade, but it will try to crawl. If it can't get to where it wants to be, it'll kind of crawl and sprawl a little bit. But it kind of takes everything. This is a relatively unusual one, which I haven't been harvesting yet. This is called topitambo, and this is apparently popular in the West Indies as well. It has a root that's supposed to taste kind of like corn, I think. I got this from another rare plant person, so I don't have enough to be eating it, but that's another kind of a unique one. Back over here, there's Cuban oregano. These are different types of malangas and taros. This is another root crop. There's another one over here. These are very popular staple crop. I think everybody that's planting, if you're into fruit trees, that's awesome. I think you should still, just in case, have some staple crops in the ground. Just in case. In case the grocery store closes and the fruit's not ready yet, you have something that you can do. That's something that I would recommend to just about anybody. And then figuring out which ones grow in your spot is going to be a challenge. For me, these grow well. I have another one called arrowroot, which I make a flour from. We bake with all the time. Really nice. Grows in a wet spot. So if you have a wet spot, you can grow arrowroot and taro. If you have a dry spot, you can go cassava and moringa and other things like that.
Now, for those who don't have as much land as you do, would you grow these in pots or still recommend them on the ground?
I like these for the ground. This one here, if I was going to do things in pots, I would probably use my herbs and my things that I have to harvest kind of a lot. So you could do these because you're going to harvest them pretty often. You could do that in pots, but I wouldn't put them in a small pot. I'd give them a little bit of space. Nice thing about because they grow low, these can grow under the tree without bothering the tree for the most part.
And with everything growing around it, all these foods, it's fine.
Oh yeah, yeah. And this is actually chaya that's coming up right here. Now chaya for me is a little bit of a problem because it has these little hairs on it and they irritate my skin. I have kind of sensitive to this particular plant, so I actually don't grow very much of it. If you're not sensitive to it, this is a great perennial vegetable. It cooks up like spinach. You can use them as little wraps. Kind of like grape leaves.
Would you just put them in water to wilt it like spinach?
I don't know. I know in Mexico, they juice it. And I think they mix it with orange juice or some kind of fruit juice and they drink it.
So just roll like that.
But the prevailing wisdom other than in Mexico is that you have to cook it.
Oh yeah, they say it's cyanide in there.
You have to cook it and discard the water. So I'll tell you what I've heard, but I won't tell you what to do.
I've heard it was you could actually cook it and keep the water because the gases just fell from it.
Oh, because it gets
the gases get out of but it's very interesting. But I hear it's like one of the most nutritious ones out there.
Yeah, and this is another edible green. This is the Jewels of Opar or Ceylon spinach. This is really good. You can eat this one raw. Really mild. Have you had this one before?
No, I'm gonna have it now. What's it called? The Ceylon spinach, right?
Ceylon spinach or Jewels of Opar. The nice thing about it is once this goes, it'll start seeding everywhere, and you'll have these beautiful little plants all over the place. And it's a really succulent plant, so it's easy to propagate. You look, the stems are really, really fleshy. And basically, if you just pull a couple leaves off and put a stick in the ground, it's going to root, no problem. And this will go right through a drought.
Could I take that with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If I put this in water on the way home, it'll be fine.
You don't even need to do that.
Really? Just stick that in the ground.
Yep. Oh, and here's the this is that Okinawa spinach. This is just like the Chinese.
Yeah, I just bought that.
But it's got the purple on the bottom.
Yeah, I just bought that. That you could just stick in the ground also?
You could. I would get a little more mature stem. Would probably do better.
So this one was called what now?
That's Ceylon spinach.
Ceylon spinach. What about the flowers? Does that mean they went too long or it's okay?
It's okay.
Are they edible?
I don't know. I think so, but I'm not 100% sure on that. This one's a little bit more mature, and this will probably root a little bit faster. For some reason, the Okinawa spinach, for me, is slightly harder to establish than the Chinese. I don't know why. They look the same, but they don't act exactly the same. One thing about this, once you get it growing, I recommend tipping it back and letting it bush up a little bit and get more robust. Because what it wants to do originally is just kind of search somewhere. But if you tip it, every one of these leaves will turn into a branch, and you'll get a nice dense bush.
So you recommend just putting it under all my trees?
That's what I like to do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just another layer of the forest. You know, you got your ground cover, you got your trees, you've got your overstory, you got your vines, you got all the different layers. You're welcome to take this as well.
Yeah, yeah,
if you'd like
please.
to.
Thank you.
Very good. And what about Brazilian spinach? What do they call that? Susap or something?
I have some over here. I haven't looked at it in a while.
All right, so that's the Brazilian spinach. Let's just talk about that.
So yeah, this is the Brazilian spinach, or sisu, I think is the other way to call it. It's another really nice little succulent. You can eat it raw, or you can cook with it. Grows well from a cutting. If you look carefully, you can see there's these little dots on the node. Those are actually where the roots would come out, right there. So just something like this, you could put in a little pot or put it in some water, and it'll start rooting, and you can have another plant. You're welcome to take that home and start your new.
So don't just put them in the ground. Put them all in water first.
I would put them, if it's the only one you have, I'd put it in a little pot with soil and keep it watered.
Okay.
More than likely, because we're coming into winter, it's not going to grow quickly right now. Maybe keep it in a warm window, or if you got a warm spot. You have to keep in mind, what's growing here is survivors.
Yeah,
they're not getting watered at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I'm doing it okay, you're probably going to do it better if you've got
Very good, very good. All right, edible flowers now. They don't just taste good, they look good. So.
Yeah, so this is like this time of year kind of cool because it looks kind of like a Christmas tree, right? You see the ornamentation. This plant is called Sesbania grandiflora, and grandiflora, what does that sound like? It means really cool flowers, right? So the flowers, they actually look very much like a toucan's bill, right? You can see, and they come in this pink color, and they also come in white, and probably a couple other colors. You can actually eat this whole thing, and you can eat them raw, but traditionally I think they're used in slightly cooked salads or things like that. We're actually growing these out for the seed because the seed's been hard for us to get, so we have a few here that we're letting the pods mature, and we're going to hopefully have the seed available so we can start them in the nursery. But this tree is unique because it's also a nitrogen fixing tree, which is something that helps the other trees around it grow. So this is a really great opportunity if you're planting your fruit trees in the early days to have something next to it that has some use and it's going to benefit your trees. Nice thing about this particular tree is it doesn't get super big, so it's not going to overwhelm somebody that doesn't want to do a lot of pruning. This is only going to get maybe another 5 or 6 feet taller, and usually these only last a few years. So it's a nice short-term, really cool little flower.
Beautiful too. All right.
Now I got to think of another flower.
Okay, another edible flower.
Here's another one. This is actually, I don't know if it's the native form of it, but there's a native blue porterweed. And believe it or not, these little flowers are edible. They taste kind of like mushrooms. And this is a very, very, very good pollinator attracting plant. This brings in all the different bees. Everything that pollinates your fruit trees likes this flower. And it tastes good.
If you eat that flower, will you attract yourself bees? Yeah.
We'll see, I don't know.
Tastes like mushrooms. And is the greens edible on that?
The greens, I don't think they're edible, but some part of this tree is used, or this plant is also used to make porter, apparently, or used to be. It's part of the flavoring, but I'm not sure exactly which part. I've already eaten most of these, but I'll show you real quick. This right here is a spiral ginger, and these little flowers that emerge from the sides, this is the immature one, are actually very crispy, almost like citrusy and slightly sweet. I'm gonna see if I can find you another one, because that was kind of an immature one. My kids eat these all the time.
Oh, here's a bunch of them.
Here's more porterweed too.
So is it only the top that's edible, or the whole thing?
So the part that you eat is these little buds that stick out the sides. Here, try that. Would you like to try one? My kids come out and hunt these like every afternoon.
Interesting.
But they're really nice in salads. It's kind of a bright, crispy thing.
And what are these called?
It's a spiral ginger. I think it's a hosta. And this is the one that I acquired first, but my friend Andy Firk has a whole collection of them that he's shared with me. So I have probably 12 other varieties of these that are all growing, all different colors and shapes and sizes. Most of the flowering happens in the summertime, so they're not all showing right now. But there's a whole world of that. There's a whole world of that.
All right. All right, everybody, there it was. Make sure you check out Matthew's information below the video. Absolutely amazing. And I've tasted these perennial vegetables. You know, I know we all love fruit trees, but don't forget those vegetables. Thank you so much for showing us around.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about those perennial vegetables before?
Just that you've only seen it a little bit. There's a lot more out there. If you want more information, I recommend going to places like Echo, checking in with some of these other groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there. There's one for vegetables and perennial foods I would recommend called Central Florida Staple Gardeners. That's one to check out.
And everybody, thanks for watching. Put your comments and questions below and have a great day and keep growing.